Hello, hello! If you are new here, my name is Masha. I make videos about friendship bracelets, I stream friendship bracelet content over on Twitch, which you can find the link to in the description, and occasionally I do bracelet tutorials as well. So today I'm going to teach you how to make this beautiful sort of crisscross design. I'll insert a picture here since I've already done this bracelet before. This is definitely a favorite of mine. I only did it once, but I had a great time making it. It's a very fun pattern, and a patron of mine recently suggested that I make a tutorial on it, so I thought I would just go ahead and do that. Before we head into it, there's a couple things I want to mention. This is definitely an advanced bracelet. This is going to be a pretty difficult tutorial to film and to edit. Oh my god, it's going to take me forever. It's probably going to be a little bit confusing to follow, purely because the pattern is huge and there's a lot of steps going into it, and I wouldn't recommend trying this bracelet if you're not confident in your bracelet skills. I have plenty of beginner tutorials. I have a beginner's guide, which is basically a ton of information that you could need as a beginner that links you to other resources that I have. I've made plenty of beginner tutorials for various bracelets and topics, so there's a lot for you to check out. This is more for my advanced friends who just want another bracelet to try out and maybe need help figuring out the segment knotting. So that being said, there are some prerequisites you need to know before you can actually use this tutorial, and obviously you need to know how to make all the knots, but specifically as well here you need to know how to make triangle ends in a loop, since that is what I already have done. I've got a loop at the top and two triangle ends coming off from it. I will explain the positioning of the strings and where specifically I decided to cut the bracelet for the triangle end, but if you don't know how to do those things, again, I have a tutorial for the loop, I have a tutorial for triangle ends, and specifically another tutorial for triangle ends coming off from loops, so that should be fine. Another thing is you can see that the triangle ends are a little bit different. They're not normal triangle ends, and that's because I first made the triangle ends and then I flipped the bracelet over. So this is actually the back side of it. If you flip it back, you can see that the knots are on this side, but I flipped it over so that the knots are on the back side. It's basically just to hide the knots, and so you have a clean start, and the knots that you make are only the knots that are going to appear in the bracelet itself. You don't have to do this, but it's something that I've done and people have asked me about before, so I thought I would just demonstrate how I did this. As for the strings that I'm using here, I went with a multicolored string for the inside of the cross, and the multicolored string goes from sort of pink to purple to blue to white, and it is a string by Captions, which is a brand that I got in Russia. I decided to make the background of this bracelet be white and the outline be a sparkly purple. So I've got a sparkly Elisa Forever Simile as the outline. Now by looking at the pattern, you can determine how many strings you need per color. Obviously if you're advanced, you already know how to do that, so I'm not going to be explaining that in this tutorial. And here is a visual demonstration of where I decided to cut for the triangle end. Again, this is an advanced tutorial, so I expect you already know how to do this. If you don't, watch my triangle ends and more on triangle ends videos. They explain in great detail of what I'm talking about here. But this is the visual for where I decided to cut the bracelet, and this is where we're actually going to be starting the bracelet now. I spent way too long explaining that. This tutorial is going to take forever. Time to jump in. So whenever I have two triangle ends coming off from a loop, I prefer to work on them individually and only link them together when I actually need to, so I can go over that connection straight away, because the connection between the triangle ends can be pretty delicate. So we're going to start off by grabbing the inside string, and it's the background string. In my case that's white. We've got two white strings in the middle of this triangle end, and just by doing forward knots with that white string, we're going to bring it all the way into the center as far as it can go. So forward knots along all of these strings, excluding this one because it needs to connect to the other triangle end. So this one doesn't count, but all the other ones we're making forward knots on with the white. There we go, the first step is complete. We're going to leave it be for a while, and we're going to focus on the other white string that we had in the center. And this white string is going to go all the way to the left in backward knots along each of the strings individually until the last string, but onto the last string it's going to do a backward forward knot in the straight edge technique, which is another thing that I expect you already know, and I have a separate video on that. You don't need to add anything for this pattern to do the straight edge technique. It's already in the pattern, so we're just really following the pattern. So backward knots on each of these strings individually, except the last one. The last one is a backward forward knot. Now that that is done, you're going to do the exact same thing on the other side, but obviously opposite. So those two central white strings, one of them is going to go all the way to the left, excluding this string, because that's the one that's going to be connected to the other triangle end. And then the other white string from the middle goes all the way to the right, excluding the last string, onto which it does a forward-backward knot instead. So let's do that. Now that these 2 steps are done, we can actually connect the 2 triangle ends. Once again, I like to do that when I have some other strings to go over that connection with, and if I do that here, I have those white strings that are going to come together in a chevron to go over that connection. So it's perfect. Honestly, I really dislike this step. I always make a mistake here. It's so difficult to go over that connection properly. I think I succeeded. But yeah, after we make that knot connecting the 2 triangle ends, you're just going to go over that connection with your white strings, connecting them together in a chevron-like shape. Alright, next up, once again, same exact motion on the left and on the right. They're basically, the 2 halves are really identical. It's a symmetrical pattern, so I'm going to show you what I'm doing on the left, and then the right side is going to be more sped up, since we've already done it once. The 2 middle strings here in the center are going to be the ones that are going to be for your outline. In my case, it's the sparkly purple. We connect them together in a knot, and with one of them we go out, and we make 2 forward knots, and with the other one we go to the other side in 2 backward knots. So we've essentially just created the opening to the diamond. We then take the 2 strings that are in the center, which are going to be the strings that are the color of the inside of your cross. In my case, it's the multicolored one. We're just going to connect them in any knot. I'm just going to do a forward knot to create that dot in that diamond. And then once that is done, we take this sparkly purple string. So we brought out 2 of them, right? We just brought out 2 sparkly strings in the sort of reverse chevron shape. But in the last knot that we did, we now have 2 sparkly strings, one of which is pointing in that direction, the other of which is pointing in this direction. So we're going to take the one that's pointing inward and do a knot onto that dot color, sort of closing off that diamond and going into the center. And same here, same on the other side. We brought that string out, but then the last knot that we did, we've got 2 of the sparkly strings now. One of them is pointing that direction, the other is pointing in this direction. We take this one and we go in a sort of closing off chevron shape. We do 2 backward knots, first on the color of the dot, and then on the actual purple sparkly string itself, the other one, essentially closing off that diamond. And then once that is done, you grab this white string that's pointing in this direction as well, and you do another sort of closing of the diamond. You close that chevron shape. There's another white string on this side poking in this direction, and you do a chevron to close off that diamond with white. And there you go, so you now have a diamond, a dot in that diamond, and then the white string closes off that diamond. You can do the exact same thing on this side. I'm not going to repeat myself. If you're still confused, you can just rewatch this and follow that along. But it's the exact same thing with the exact same strings, since it's symmetrical, literally the same. I know this tutorial is going a little bit fast, but it's a huge pattern and I'm really trying to speed through it to make it bearable to watch. All right, now that those diamonds have been created, we're going to go in and start making the outline of the top of the cross. And this is also done in basic shapes. There's a lot of basic shapes here. There's diamonds, there's chevrons. It's all pretty simple. It's a pretty complex pattern in the sense that there's a lot of it, but the shapes that you have to make are quite simple. So we're going to start off with that. In the top of the left corner here, you've got 2 sparkly purple strings, and same in the top of this corner here, you've got 2 sparkly purple ones there as well. On both of these sides, you're going to make a knot between them, and then bring one of the strings from each side in the form of a chevron, connecting them in the center here. So we had 2 strings at the top for each. One of them we just brought in. Now take the other one, so this string, and do 2 knots to the left here. And for this one, you're going to do 2 knots to the right. So we just started creating that outline for the cross. Now that that is done, you're going to go to the tip of this triangle and to the tip of this triangle, and you're going to notice that there are 2 strings in each of those peaks that are the inside color, my multicolored strings. And again, same motion as we just did, we're going to connect the 2 strings in each peak and then bring one of them into the center from each side in a chevron. Now you might notice that the string coming from the right for me is white. That's not because I'm using a background string, it's just because the multicolored string that I'm using for the inside is pink, purple, blue, and white. So that is still the multicolored string. Don't confuse it with the background string. Now that that's done, we're going to start bringing in the outline. So we brought the outline out here, and there's 2 strings of that outline on each peak here. We're going to take the one that is pointing inward, and we're going to bring it all the way in to the purple string that's closest to this knot here. So we're not making knots on the multicolored string, but we're going to bring the outline string all the way in to the last outline string here that's closest to the center. Same on that side, we're going to take the outline string that's pointing in that direction from that knot here and bring it all the way in until the outline string that is closest to the center, which is this one. So we're not making a full chevron, we're leaving 2 strings behind, but we're bringing it in as close as it will go without going over those 2 strings. So now that that is done, we've got 2 multicolored strings in the center here, 2 outline strings on the right of that, 2 outline strings to the left of that. We need to bring in the background string now to close off that tip of the cross. And we've got those white strings. We've got a white string here. You're going to notice that a lot of these strings come in pairs. We've got 2 white strings here. One of them is pointed in this direction. The other one is pointed in that direction, is going to be used for this part. But we're going to take that string that's pointed in this direction, bring it all the way in until this white string. So the strings that we've already brought in, we're not touching, we're leaving them be, but we're going to bring that string all the way until this white string. And the other white string here that we did a backward forward knot with on the edge is going to be the one that we're going to be working with from this side, and it's going to go again all the way in until this white string. So once again, not touching the strings we've already brought in, just up until this white string. So it's not a full chevron, but it's a chevron-like motion, so we're going like that. Alright, now that that's done, we've got the start of our cross, and the background strings are brought into the center as well. We're going to leave this side B for the time being and do the exact same thing on the right side. So I'm not going to be showing it again, but it's exactly the same thing we did here, just on the right side. Oh my god, I've already been filming for like 45 minutes, I'm so tired. But now it's time to go into the diamonds that separate this part. So we've got 3 diamonds to do. We've got 1 in the center and 2 half diamonds for the sides. Let's start with the one in the center. So this is a very simple shape, just a little diamond in the center. We start by taking the 2 strings of sparkly purple in the center. We go in a reverse chevron with a knot between them and then 2 knots off to the sides. We then make a dot in the center of a chevron by connecting the 2 multicolored strings that we have in any knot. I'm just going to do a forward knot here. And we then do a chevron with the sparkly purple string to close off that diamond. Now we need to do another chevron with the white string. We now have 2 white strings here and 2 white strings there. We take the white string from the left side that's pointing inward, and then the white string from the right side that's pointing inward. We do a chevron and then connect them in the center. I was going to do the side to half diamonds now, but we might as well do the middle since we are here. And that just goes to say that there's no right or wrong way of segment knotting. We can go do the diamonds now. We can do this now. It doesn't really matter. So people can segment knot in different ways. So there's 2 strings here of the sparkly purple outline. I'm going to grab the one that's pointing inward. And then same here, there's 2 here. You grab the one that's pointing inward. And you just do a chevron and then connect them in the center as well. Once that is done, there is another chevron yet to be made, and that's going to be the chevron with the multicolored string that's in the center of the cross. So we're actually making the top half of the cross now. So it's the same idea here. You've got 2 strings of the multicolored here, 2 strings of the multicolored there. You grab the one that's pointing inward from either side, you do a chevron and then connect them in the center. Alright, so now that that is done, we do actually have to go into the half diamonds because the rest of the strings aren't in the correct positions yet to close off this shape. We're going to start with the left one here. Grab the outline string that is closest to the edge. Do a backward forward knot on the edge for the straight edge technique. And then 2 forward knots after that. Then take the multicolored string, do a backward forward knot with that on the edge for the straight edge technique. And then out of the 2 sparkly strings here for the outline, grab the one that's pointed to the left. Do 1 backward knot and then 1 backward forward knot. that completes the diamond itself, but you're now going to grab the white string from these two white strings here, the one that's pointed in this direction. You're going to grab it and you're going to go all the way to the left in backward knots, except the last string you're going to do a backward forward knot onto for the straight edge technique. And then do the same thing on the right side, except in opposite knots, since it's the other side. All right, so next up, we're gonna do the bit that comes out of the cross on the sides. So as I said, you're gonna notice that a lot of the strings are in pairs. This is quite typical for patterns such as this. And we have a pair of the purple sparkly here. One of them is pointing in this direction, the other in the opposite. We're gonna take the one that's pointing to the left and bring it to the left in backward knots, all the way up until the last sparkly string here. And then straight away after we did that, we're gonna take the multicolored string that's coming out of here to the left, and we're going to bring it to the left again up until the multicolored string here. So the sparkly purple is going to go to the left until the sparkly purple, and the multicolored is going to go to the left until the multicolored. Alright, so that's done. You might be a bit confused here since this color looks white, but once again, that is part of the multicolored string. My multicolored string goes into white sometimes. This isn't the background string, this is the multicolored string. We just formed another pair of the two sparkly strings, and one of them points to the right. We're gonna take that one and we're just gonna make one single knot onto the multicolored string. So one forward knot here to close off that cross here. And then once that is done, we're gonna continue on with the outline. There are two sparkly strings here in the center, right at the top. We're gonna make a knot between them, and one of them is gonna go all the way to the right up until here. So we've got the two multicolored strings meet in the center, and then to the left of that, we've got one of the outline strings, one of the sparkly purples. So we're gonna bring this string all the way up until there in forward knots, and then the other string going in that direction is gonna go all the way to the left up until the sparkly string that we just brought out in a forward knot here. So in a reverse chevron, this one goes all the way to the right, this one to the left, until they meet the strings that match them. And there we go, we've got this little tail coming out of the cross, and the outline is complete for this section. One final thing we're gonna do on this side before we do the same thing on the other is we're gonna bring in the background string, which is the white. So taking this white string that we've got coming out from the edge, we're gonna bring it in on 3 knots, and then we've also got 2 white strings in the center at the tip here. We're gonna make a knot between them, bring one of them out to meet this one coming from this side. So this one is gonna go to the left and meet this one going to the right, and then the other one is gonna go in the opposite direction to the right and is gonna stop once it meets this white string coming from the left. Alright, now that that's done, we're going to do the exact same thing on the right side, but of course opposite, since it is symmetrical. Alright, so now it's time to go into the diamonds once again, except this time we've got 2 diamonds in the center and then 2 half diamonds on the sides, just as we had here. So we've done this already, it's going to be quite simple, starting with a backward forward knot on the edge string and then 2 forward knots. We then have a backward forward knot done with the multicolored string onto the edge string. And then the sparkly string that's pointing in the left is going to do 1 backward knot and 1 backward forward knot. We've got 2 white strings here, and one of them is pointing to the left. That one is going to go all the way to the left in backward knots, and then a backward forward knot on the edge string. Now to the diamond in the center. We take the 2 sparkly purple strings that are in the center, we make a knot between them, and then the one going to the right makes 2 forward knots, the one going to the left makes 2 backward knots. A knot between the 2 multicolored strings is then made to create the dot, and after this the sparkly outline strings are going to come back together in a chevron to close off this diamond. And then finally, we've got a white string coming from this side here, going to the right, and another white string coming from this side here, going to the left. They're gonna come together in a chevron to close off the diamond with the background color. And now we do the exact same thing on the other side, except opposite, of course. We do the half diamond and then the diamond here as well. All right, so that is now complete. I've been filming for like 2 hours, and it's time to continue with the second half of the cross. So we've got 2 of the sparkly purple strings in this corner here. We're gonna connect them. One of them is gonna go to the left in 2 backward knots, connecting with the other sparkly string here. And the other is gonna go in a chevron all the way until this tip here. We also have 2 sparkly strings here for the outline that we did previously, and one of them is going to go to the left here in, as I said, that chevron shape here, and connect in the center the one that's coming from this tip. So let's do that. Now that the outline is done, we're going to go in with a chevron of the multicolored string. So we've got 2 multicolored strings here in the center. One of them is pointed to the left. We're going to grab that one and bring it into a chevron that goes up until here. And then we've got another multicolored string coming out from this side. It looks white, but it is the multicolored string. And we're also going to bring it into a chevron. And then they're going to meet in the center here and do a knot between each other. And at this point, we're gonna stop and we're gonna do the exact same thing on the other side. All right, now that that is done, we're heading into the end bits, actually. There are 2 sparkly purple strings in the center. We're gonna connect them and we're gonna bring them out in a reverse chevron, just like we did basically everywhere else. So we've got the 2 multicolored strings, and then to the left of that, we've got the purple string, and then same here, but on the right. And that is the string we're going to be bringing out the center strings to. So this one goes all the way until this one, and that one goes all the way until the sparkly string that comes out here. All right, so since we're here in the center, might as well do that diamond for the center straight away. So there's 2 white strings in the center. We're going to connect them and bring them out until they each meet a white string either side in a reverse chevron. Then we're going to do the same thing after that with the sparkly strings, connecting them in the center because they're going to be in the center after we move the white strings. Connect them in the center, bring them out in 2 knots each until they meet the next sparkly string. Then we're going to do the dot in the center with the multicolored strings because they're going to end up in the center once we move the white and the sparkly. After that is done, we're going to close that diamond off in a chevron with the sparkly strings, and after the diamond is closed, we're going to close that off again with the white strings in, again, a chevron. So yeah, I'm running through that, but we've done these diamonds quite a lot in this bracelet already, so I assume you know how to do this. So in the middle, we've got the 2 white strings, and then to the left and to the right of those white strings, we've got a sparkly outline string. These are the strings we're going to be bringing out the other sparkly strings to. So here we've got a pair of sparkly strings, and we're going to bring the one pointing to the right up until this sparkly string. Same on this side. We've got a pair of the sparkly outline strings. The one that's pointing to the left is going to go to the left until this one. Now that that's done with these two sparkly strings, to the left of it we've got the multicolored string. Same on this side with these two sparkly strings, we've got a multicolored string to the right of that. These are the strings we're going to bring out the other multicolored strings to. Got a pair of multicolored here on the left. The one that's going to the right is going to go to the right up until this multicolored one. Same here on the left. We've got two multicolored strings here in a pair, and the one that's pointing to the left is going to go to the left until this one. Now that that's done, we can go into the outline. We've got these two sparkly strings. We can just do one forward knot here to close off this side, and then one backward knot on the other side, mirroring that motion as well. But now we're going to shift focus to the edges. So we've got these two sparkly strings for the outline. We've also got this multicolored string going here. We're going to separate that, and we're going to take the sparkly string that's pointed inward, and we're going to bring it in until the sparkly string here, right before the multicolored one. Once that's done, you're going to separate that, separate the sparkly strings, grab the white string that's coming out from the edge and bring it in. So we're doing the background here up until the white string. And then we're going to do the half diamond, bringing in the sparkly string with a backward forward knot and then two forward knots. We then do a backward forward knot with the multicolored string, and the sparkly string is going to go in a backward knot and a backward forward knot. And then we're going to do the same thing with the white, going in backward knots until the edge string, and the edge is going to do a backward forward knot instead. Once that is done, we're going to start the outline. So we've got two sparkly strings here for the outline. The one that's pointed to the left is going to go all the way to the left until the last sparkly string available. Then we take the multicolored string coming out from here and we bring it all the way to the left until it meets the last multicolored string available. Alright, now we're going to go with the outline again. The sparkly string from the left is just going to do one knot on the multicolored string here to the right. And then we're going to separate this as well because we've got the outline string coming in from here. We're going to take the two outline strings from the center, combine them in a knot, and then bring them out until these two sparkly strings here to finish that outline. Alright, so this part is done. We're going to do the exact same thing on the other side, but obviously opposite since it's mirrored. And then after that, we've just got a tiny step left until the pattern repeats itself. So we're nearly done. So this is the point where if you were finishing the bracelet, you would probably start going into the triangle ends. I like to finish this bracelet in two triangle ends, just like we started. We started with two triangle ends coming off from a loop. I like to make two triangle ends and then finishing with like braids or twisted ties. If this was your last cross that you were making in the bracelet, you would probably start thinking about triangle ends at this point. You would probably make the two diamonds remaining on this side, cover them with the white background, and that would be your triangle end. I will also demonstrate on the pattern what I mean and where I would cut the triangle ends. It would be very similar to how we did them at the beginning, pretty much the same point with the same diamonds. So if you're watching this tutorial over and over again to get to the end, this is where I would think about the end if I were you. But since we're not at the end yet, as I'm making this bracelet, we still have a diamond in the center and two half diamonds on the edges to complete until the pattern repeats itself. Starting with the diamond in the center, you're going to take all the strings that are pointing into the center, so all of the strings that come after the outline. Grabbing the two inner white strings, you're going to bring one of them all the way to the right, one of them all the way to the left on these strings, so 3 knots each. Next, grabbing the outline strings, you're just going to do a diamond. You're going to connect the two in the center, then bring them out until the other sparkly strings, then do the dot in the center, and then bring them back in a chevron. We've done diamonds plenty of times in this bracelet, so I assume you already know how to do that. We need to do the half diamonds, so focusing on the left one for now. You're going to grab the white string, do 3 forward knots. Grab the purple, it's going to do a backward forward and then 2 forward. The multicolored is going to do a backward forward knot, and then the purple is going to close off with a backward and backward forward knot. And then you do the exact same thing on the other side, except in reverse. And there you go, the repeating pattern is complete. That's all I have for the tutorial. All of the strings are back in the positions they needed to be for the beginning of the pattern. So they're in the exact same position as they were when we started. And if you scroll back to the beginning of the tutorial, that is going to be exactly the instructions I would give to you. You repeat the pattern again and again. Last time I did this pattern, I did 4 crosses, but you can do 3, you can do 5, whatever works for you. And then once you decide to finish, as I said before, I personally would do 2 triangle ends, and then you would do them a little bit earlier, as I mentioned, and I even showed you on the pattern where I would cut the triangle ends. So this is what the pattern looks like so far. I think it's coming along quite nicely, but hopefully this tutorial was understandable for you. If you still have any questions left, feel free to leave them in the comments. I'll try to answer as many as I can. If you ever make anything from this tutorial, I'd love to see it, so tag me over on Instagram. It'd be great to see. I'm not very experienced in filming more advanced tutorials, so let me know if you have any feedback. I'd love to know, so I could maybe improve for future tutorials. I have no idea how long I was filming this. It feels like at least 3 hours, I'm not sure. But this took a really long time, so I hope you guys enjoyed. But yeah, if you want more content from me, I also stream on Twitch. I try to do that 2 or 3 times a week. You can follow me on there to get notified when I go live. And if you missed a Twitch stream and you still want to watch it, you can watch it on my Masha streams channel, which is linked under every video. I re-upload my Twitch streams to YouTube onto that channel specifically. And also you can watch old streams of mine if you want to do that. The Derek streams seem to be your guys' favorite, so go ahead and watch the Derek streams if you want to, if you haven't already. I also have a second channel on which I post story times and other stuff, and I recently posted a story time of how I failed high school and didn't get into university. So if you're curious to hear that story, which is actually pretty sad and traumatic to talk about, but I wanted to anyway, you can watch that over on my second channel, Maria Makarova, which will also be linked in the description, and I'll leave the video in the card as well. But anyway, thank you very much for watching. I want to give a special shout out to my patrons and especially my top supporters whose names are going to appear on screen right now. Thank you guys very much for your support. I really do appreciate it. If you also want to become a patron, there's a link in the description where you can sign up and get exclusive perks for your donations. But regardless, thank you very much for watching. I hope you enjoyed, and I'll see you in my next video. Bye!